Hi, my name is Shash, and here are some behaviorally informed approaches to increasing shareholder voting in the United States. Here's some context. The total global equities market cap is around $108 trillion. This number fluctuates, but it's current as of June 2022. The United States represents around 42% of global equities market at around $48 trillion as of this June. In simple terms, this number represents the total amount of value of every stock traded in the United States in June 2022. Stocks that are increasingly owned by retail investors. The demographics of the retail investor landscape has drastically changed over the last decade. Surveys identify 4 key tenets that are valuable to retail investors: corporate identity, easily digestible materials, investor engagement that is simple and interactive, and social proof. Here we'll only focus on the interactive and simplified approach. In the US, around 71 to 75% of equities are held by institutional investors, while retail investors make up around 28 to 30% of equity ownership. And the institutional investor participation rate is much higher, 90 to 92%, as compared to retail investors, which is 28 to 36%. And this is driven by several reasons: lack of relevant information and education, the power of default. In this case, there is no default action. Inaction is the default, which is what we see. And framing. Voting requests are a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo with no clear call to action. A few more reasons: sludge, it's tedious. If that is tedious, the choice architecture is hideous or non-existent. And lastly, cognitive dissonance. Not sure what this is or why my vote matters. Will it even matter if I vote? So that's a good question. So what? Who gives a shit? Why does it matter? Well, it matters to anyone and everyone who cares about sustainability, who cares about global emissions, animal welfare, if you own fast food stock, biodiversity and food security, displacement of humans, human trafficking, equity and social justice, taxation, use of public goods, access to clean water, and the list goes on and on. Today, you could vote across any one of these metrics for publicly traded organizations where you own stock. With this experiment, we aim to answer 2 simple questions. Number 1, will app-based message framing and personalization impact the outcome variable, which is shareholder vote? And number 2, will it be significantly different from a simple message? Our sample population are the retail investors. Investors who might have a brokerage account at any one of these fine and some not so fine institutions. Note that we're making some huge assumptions here, that retirement plan participants, which are excluded, are grossly underrepresented in this retail investor group, and also these retail investors have a high likelihood of non-voting. But also note that if this treatment is effective in this group here, it might also be effective in non-transient investor groups. Which leads us to experiment design. The retail investors will be randomly assigned to either a control group or a treatment group. The control group will see the same old boring pop-up. The treatment group will be divided across these 3 areas with 3 different treatments and with increasing level of messaging, information, and then personalization. The outcome variable will be the shareholder vote. Here's a mock-up of the control group. Fairly straightforward messaging. For treatment number 1 with the message, it's either the name of the organization or the message that might resonate with the participant. For treatment number 2, message and information, which is take action, be heard, vote, which is the message, and the information is exactly what you're voting on. Treatment number 3 includes everything from prior treatments along with personalization. For instance, you get to decide if an executive gets a bonus, or you get to decide on the sustainability practices of an oil and gas company. For statistical significance, we'll use the OLS regression. We'll control for certain demographic factors, and we will control for other factors depending on what type of firm we end up working with. For economic significance, we assume that higher engagement with corporations is measured by the outcome variable. The ability to influence board compensation and corporate policy is also measured by the outcome variable. Other economically significant areas, such as ability to influence use of public goods and potentially longer buy and hold behaviors, will not be measured, but they're highly indicative by the outcome variable. Here are a couple of subgroups who might react differently based on either their demographics or their participation with certain type of brokerage firm. For limitations, there's a heterogeneity in type of shareholder votes, which creates confusion. The short-term or day traders might react differently to this. there is a dilutive effect of activist investors, and there might be some other unintended consequences of this experiment that we might not have thought about. So we end up with the same question: why give a shit? Shareholder vote, your vote, my vote. It matters because it impacts corporate governance. Corporate governance that impacts corporate donations, which influences everything from lobbying, laws, public policy, environment, sustainability in this country. There is an ability for all of us to exercise our shareholder voting rights in order to influence the environment and the policy and the areas we live in.